Welcome to the Barrels and Business Podcast. I am your host, Jade Green, and this is the podcast for beach-loving, barrel-chasing business owners. In the next hour or so, I plan to give you as many tangible tips on how you can grow and build your kick-ass team, scale your business, and live the epic life of your dreams. So stay tuned while myself and my guests bring you all of the best.
Oh, thanks.
Thanks
for making me self-conscious as we start the podcast. Barrels and Business here. Danny from Bay FM's Sandpit. Jade Green, Richard Johnston, CEO of Tripadeal over here. And been looking forward to doing helping out with this podcast for a while because there's a really great little bit of sort of full circle coming here, sitting here talking to Richard about his current job because he was the guy that gave me my first ever job.
I heard he pulled you into the back of a van while you were loitering down
when
the street.
you put it that way, it sounds kind of sinister.
Like I shouldn't be in schools and stuff like that. But
this is before the days of sort of LinkedIn and stuff. The way to get LinkedIn was somebody to actually physically link you into something.
Link you into something?
Yeah, exactly. and I was skateboarding into town. I'd finished high school and I'd delayed university by a year, and I had to go get a job in a surf shop or a video shop or something. And before I even got into town, the Byron Surf School bus had pulled up in front of me. And I just remember this voice going, "Oi, Dan, what are you doing?" And I was like, "I don't know." And he goes, "Fuck that, get in the van." And I just got in. He goes, "Mate, I got a job for you. How do you feel about surf coaching?" Something along those lines.
Yeah, exactly.
And that started probably one of the most...
skateboarded, he would be able to surf.
Well, I've known Dan.
Yeah, we already knew each other.
We're like surfers, you know, a young grommet cruising through town on a skateboard, and I was down a man and thought, Dan's the man. Dan is the man. And so Dan jumped in, and within 15 minutes he's on the beach, the backpacker girls, helping him onto waves, natural.
Oh, sounds like a shit job there, Danny.
And I think it says a bit about Richard that he's somebody that just follows his gut, follow his instinct. And
that's true.
If he's, he doesn't sort of hesitate when it comes to solving a problem.
I think that served me well and served this business well, actually. That's a very good observation, actually. Just like lean in and go for it.
Yeah.
Don't overthink stuff. Just go for it. If you feel like something instinctively is a good idea, just lean in on it and go hard.
And I mean, we will talk a little bit about how we got to where we are, sitting in the Tripadeal offices, kind of at the end of a hugely challenging couple of years and looking into the future. But so Tripadeal as itself could be considered, Australia's biggest package deals company. Is that sort of how you'd sort of place it?
Definitely. I think we've been sort of described that way. We're an outbound package holiday business.
You sell bucket list dreams.
We sell bucket list dreams at affordable prices. That's sort of the tagline. So we specialise in outbound stuff to bucket list destinations. And so we were the guys, a few years back, and we won't go right back just now, but we were described as the new package holiday kings of Australia. Because when package holidays were sort of a bit out of fashion,
like Kentucky's sort of for old people, isn't it?
Buses and, exactly. And
it's not cool.
Sort of mass travel wasn't cool. Everyone, like Airbnb was coming out and all these different ways, and bookings.com and Expedia, and you're making your own packages, and booking everything yourself. You weren't going to Flight Centre anymore, and so we brought back the package deal. Yeah. And
I mean, when you describe yourself as that, it's an interesting time because who can describe themselves as anything right now? Do you sort of look at the way the business was before COVID hit and considered that as where Tripadeal is now, and just sort of factor this as a glitch in the matrix kind of thing?
It is a glitch in the matrix. I mean, it is interesting because we have just recently, just this week, picked up where we left off. Literally, as some people in the industry had sort of spoken about, people in private equity who were sort of examining the tourism sector. What happened is it wasn't a demand crisis, it was a supply crisis. So any time in a business where you've got a supply crisis, you can fix it. Demand crisis are much harder to fix, right? No one wants your product. Difficult. Yep. Everyone wants your product, you can't get your product. That's an easier or a better problem to solve. So it was very much a supply crisis, and it was this exceptional moment like we'd never seen it. Like no one thought the world was going to stop. Like literally stopped.
This is okay. So
Yeah.
we've got to a little point in the chat already that I've been very excited about hearing. Just for you and Norm, who's the co-CEO founder of this business. Do you guys remember that first conversation when you realised the shit had well and truly hit the fan?
Yeah, I do. I remember in 2019, we were just growing. Like this was like a rocket ship. This thing, right? It just kept going up to higher and higher altitudes. And we're like, nothing can stop this. It's just like everything we did was working. Every marketing dollar returned 10x. It was just madness, right? And I remember sitting around with Norm. We might have been in Bali or maybe somewhere Sri Lanka or somewhere overseas together. And we had we used to take these managers, offshore manager meetings, right? Where we take a team
building.
And, yeah, exactly. And we're having the conversation around it, and someone said the only thing that could stop this would be a global pandemic.
Touch wood.
We just laughed. And went, yeah, ha, 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 ha.
He's actually said that.
Touch wood.
Oh my God.
3 months later, 4 months later, the world came to a grinding halt.
What did you do to that person?
It may have been Norm. I can't remember who it was, but it was just a bit of banter.
Yeah.
And we can't recall exactly who it was, but it was a bit of banter.
So this is before like the Wuhan and before like the virus had even come out of the
Exactly, because we'd sort of
wherever
war gained it, right? We said, okay, well, there might be something happen in France or a tidal wave in Japan, or there could be things that would be isolated. But nothing was going to stop the whole world, and we serviced the entire world. So something going wrong in Japan, I just pivot to the US or something, right?
Yeah.
This was literally the whole fucking world. And so we got, because our biggest customer cohort was outbound Aussies to China, right?
Right.
So we had early intel that things were fucked up in China.
Where from? Do you have like contacts in?
Our on-the-ground operators in China.
Yeah.
They weren't saying that there was specifics around that, but we were hearing there was like a SARS-like virus going around. We thought it might be contained to China, but I think the speculation was it would have an impact on our operation over there, maybe for a very short period of time.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to be the world's going to stop. We're going to go through this whole madness, this dystopian crisis of the last, 20 months, which is, we're just coming out of now.
So at what point did the dystopian crisis really kick in and you had to kind of go, well, we're going to have to really trim this down in order to become a
there's
stay
this
business?
massive scramble that happens, right, where the realisation's dawning by the day,
When is this? This is sort of early Feb 2020.
Feb 2020. So we had a manager's offshore plan for Bali in Feb 2020. And so we flew to Bali. The world was still open at that point. But so we got to Bali, but even flying over there, the airports, people started to wear masks and something was shifting. And we got to Bali and then we were over there, obviously having this offshore, but also going around to different hotels because we had contracts with different hotels. And they were starting to say how Chinese are starting to cancel and they're starting to cancel. There was this real sense that the tide was going out faster than we thought. And it wasn't until we arrived back in Australia, sort of second, third week in Feb, and things were looking gnarly. And again, we just thought it was going to be contained to Asia or something.
Yeah.
And I took off to Fiji to try and say, well, you're going to lose all these customers from Asia. So I thought, we'll send all the Aussies to Fiji now. So we thought we'd be isolated from it. The world was going to be impacted, but we were going to be able to pivot our business and take it somewhere.
So you're pivoting out of China to Fiji, for example.
We've always been agile. So I thought, we can just take we can sort of close up shop over there and then just point our market over here now.
Yeah. So you said before that you'd kind of war gamed other situations. So did you have a backup plan for, okay, well, if we need to quickly pivot, we've got these different areas, this is what we do.
Which is the first thing that we went to.
Yeah.
Right, but then when we realised that sort of the doors were slamming shut everywhere, then it became much more tricky, right? And then the crisis went from where can we send our customers to how can we get our customers home?
Right.
Because they're now offshore everywhere around the world. They're on cruise ships off Italy. They're in the deserts of Morocco. They're literally everywhere. And the phone calls are coming in.
Yeah.
We've got to get home. They're going to close the borders in Australia. We're going to get locked out. How do we get home? And as that was happening, the whole world was shutting down. So flights were getting cancelled and, routes were getting cancelled. And
Are there still people out there now on a Tripadeal tour somewhere?
I hope not.
Just like sitting in some room, just shaking, weighing 5 kilograms, just like...
Casablanca or something, some little shit tip in Casablanca.
No, they were taken off to Essaouira, so...
Yeah, exactly. And
they're in agony and they wanted to surf.
Life's good right now, yeah, exactly. Smoking some hash or something down there on the point. So we had people in various situations. We had people who got on cruise ships in, say, Mauritius, and they were halfway between there and Europe, and the world was shutting down. And so we didn't know what to do. And so there's a lot of times where we were on the phone to people on the decks of cruise ships, or
you didn't have people on the Princess Mary. Was it Princess?
Ruby Princess.
Ruby Princess. You have anyone on that?
We had crazy situations. There's a lot of crazy stories that came out of it. But we had buses, say, in the north of Italy, and of course that's where the COVID crisis was. So they were saying, well, we've got to get out of here.
They must have been. People must have been really scared.
Yeah, and they closed the road to Rome or something like that. So they're heading out to Slovenia or some other countries to try and get out of there. And literally, we had people going to the borders, and they were closing borders as buses were getting there and saying you can't go, so turn back. And so it was really crazy. And we were coordinating this out of our other meeting room upstairs, and it was like a 24/7.
It's the sort of stuff that like people like UN and like diplomats have to do in like war situations. Exactly. You guys don't have the training to be doing that kind of thing.
Diplomats talking to us. We had people in consulates and stuff around the world. We were talking to airlines, trying to get the hustle for seats on the airlines and stuff. So there was this intense, probably 2-week period where we were literally trying to, like, we had a scoreboard and we're sort of scratching off people who were like, we got them home, they're coming home, they're coming home.
So you weren't even thinking so much about the financial impact on your business at that point. It was more just the taking care of your customers, getting customers home.
You couldn't even think about the financial impact. The consequences were so huge that you couldn't even think about that. Our first instance was just get our customers home and try and protect the brand as best we could.
Yeah. Talk me through the mental fortitude that you needed, and how, more importantly though, how did you lead your team and give them that? Because they probably were feeling responsible, freaked out, stressed out. There's not enough hours in the day to do everything.
What I found here, and it was interesting, it brought out the best in everyone. There was a real sense of excitement almost. It was like drama, so much drama the whole time. We had, world maps up on the thing. We were tracking people over here. And we had all the screens up everywhere, tracking flights and routes and all that sort of stuff. And we had people who were just literally on phones. We've got a couple of native Italian speakers here. They're talking to people in Italian. She can also speak Spanish, and someone can speak French, and it's all going on, right? So there was a real sense of camaraderie, and it actually we felt a little bit deflated once it was over.
Yeah.
There were some people who they really rose up to the moment so much.
Yeah.
They couldn't actually reconcile what happens next.
Yeah.
And over a course of the next few months where the air came out of the tyre and things really flattened out here, they sort of just drifted away from the business because they just reached such a high and they were so invested. It was like there was nothing to do.
So you were having to take people's minds off the fact that they might be losing their jobs in the next few weeks and keeping them...
I mean, yes, there was that. I mean, in the first instance, again, no one knew. We didn't know the extent of it. We said we had to get them home, the borders were closing. But we thought that, I don't think anyone thought it was going to be...
This long?
2 years. Yeah. And all this bullshit which we've had to go through and, all this sort of disconnection from everyone, even in our own communities, right? So we just didn't know any of that. So there's no thought about that, but what we did do, and I'm proud of this, we actually maintained, at least 60 people here the whole way through COVID on full salaries. Didn't tip them a single cent,
Yeah. How did you manage to do that?
Well, when you've had a good few years and you're sitting on surplus, you've got to draw down on that, don't you? So we sort of had saved for the rainy day, and the rainy day came, and we were prepared for it. There was redundancies because when you're in a growth business and it's no longer growing, there's certain roles that just don't exist anymore. So they're sitting there and they were literally voluntarily coming forward going, mate, I've just got nothing to do now. Yeah. It's all over. I'm like, well, thanks for your service. And there was a really testing few months for myself and Norm when we were saying goodbye to some people soldiers that carried us the whole way through our business from the start, And so that was a really big sort of emotional roller coaster for a few weeks there.
Was it sort of like see you later rather than goodbye kind of thing though?
They just come forward. They were so gracious and generous with their praise for us and for the opportunity we gave them. And it was it was quite amazing when you have people, they're losing their jobs and they're thanking us. Well, thank you. So that was a proud moment. I think that spoke to the culture of the business at the time. We got a lot of them back. Not all of them, because people go off and do their own thing, but a lot of them have come back, and where we could, we rehired them. And it's been a very up and down couple of years.
Culture's my jam, so that's my specialty. So can you go a little bit deeper into what you did to build the culture to get it to that stage where people are thanking you when they're leaving? Just describe the build, from, I actually was at your old facility. My sister's fiance helped lay the floor when you guys needed a floor in emergency mode.
Yeah, right.
One time, so I'd been in there when you were in the tiny space.
Yeah.
What was the journey through being able to go through that rapid growth? How did you attract people, especially in Byron, and getting them into a space like this and build a culture where the people are that committed and dedicated? And
a real challenge to build a business like ours in a town like Byron. Very transient workforce here and things like that. So mostly speaking, we were just getting anybody, literally anybody, and training them up.
Yep.
So it was when the growth was really on, like in the early stages, it was myself and Norm. I was actually living in Bali. Norm was here, and I was sort of.
I heard you were in a laundry, working in a laundry for a little while.
Yeah. So I pretty much when we first started, we had an idea. I was living in Bali at the time. Norm was back here living at Durrabee in a donga. Not living in a donga. He had a little donga on this thing, and so he set up a little office there. And I pushed the washing machine to one side of my thing, put a desk in, and I was literally in the laundry. He was in his donga, and we were collaborating. We were exactly split down the middle in the business. I did 50% of the work, he did the other half. And even in the early days of customer service, for example, we put on different names and personalities. So we'd answer the phone. And Norm had all these characters. There was a gay Chinese guy who lived at home with his mum. There was this guy John. There's all these different people, right? And so
not politically correct.
To ourselves. Yeah. And so you want to talk to Richard, you have to go through 3 people to get to me, but it was just me.
Really? So to create the illusion of being bigger than what you are,
Exactly. So it was pretty funny. So we had all these sort of...
Because you guys have always been, always larger than gung-ho,
Exactly. So we
always.
Fake it till you make it and all that, right? You know that, Dan. You've seen our journey. Normally, you've seen us from a young age going through the ranks. So started off with that. And so first of all, I guess the starter culture, the little nugget of sourdough in the beginning was just mine and Norm's friendship, because we were best mates before we got into business together. Mm-hmm. So there was always that natural sort of connection and synergy and banter and fun around the working together, because we sort of brought all that to the table. And so I think with that starter culture, we attracted people who sort of bought into that little dynamic, and so we sort of built outwards from that little nucleus, and started to attract people like Dan. I'm just cruising on the bus and dancing.
So, but Norm's just come out of the chicken coop business, and you'd been running a hotel in Bali called the Island.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then, so where did the idea to start a package?
I heard it started over beers in Bali after your wedding.
Exactly. So Norm's had been
Where
up
all
in
good
Bali.
ideas start.
Yeah.
You've been doing your research.
Exactly. But
Before I got here.
so several beers over several events over, like Norm and I, what we had sort of figured out sort of now looking back is we'd sort of been in a business partnership for many years before we became business partners, because we were both entrepreneurs, both had our own businesses, and he'd look to me for advice and vice versa. So we sort of sounding boards to each other's ideas. There's things I was good at, he was good at. I'd ask him questions, he'd ask me questions, and we'd sort of collaborated just on each other's businesses. Mm-hmm. And so by the time we'd come together, we'd already worked out our strengths and weaknesses. Mm-hmm. But
you're the master storyteller.
Well, Norm's a fucking great talker too, like an amazing storyteller.
He's the salesman though, isn't he?
He's a salesman. but my background was content, right? So I was good at content per se. Norm's a great salesman. He can talk the leg off a chair, right? Norm Black, holy shit. And when I first started thinking about, just prior to that, I was saying to Norm, like, he was always selling little things. I said, just sell big things, dude. You're the best salesman I've ever met. You've been selling these little small things, just sell fucking big things, dude, and like the number's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So Tripadeal really was just that. It was just, instead of selling small things, he sold big things, and here we are. But getting back to the start of it, it literally was collaborating on each other's projects, and I had the hotel in Bali. I'm thinking, how the fuck do we grow this thing? It's so hard to build a hotel in Bali to begin with, right? Just such a ball ache. You literally make them by hand. You get buckets of concrete, and people literally make it by hand. They pour the concrete and walk down again and get another one. And
I actually still owe Richard's brother money for my wedding was at the Island.
Yes. Do you still owe us cash?
I don't know if I. Right. Well, it's debatable because.
Let's just write that off the tab.
Yeah. Okay.
It's done.
Done deal.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. I mean, we're divorced now anyway, so
exactly.
Just pass it on to her.
I could maybe
Exactly.
blame the hotel for the, I don't know, wedding going sour.
You reckon?
Maybe.
Good
Everybody
luck with
hooked out. Everybody was hooking up at that wedding. It was like the Island Hotel. It was like Love Island. Love Island. It was a version of Love Island. It was like they were there.
Exactly. So bottom line, a very long story short, basically, how do you scale a hotel? Well, you can't keep making hotels. You've got to just be the guy that sells the beds to the hotels, right?
Yeah.
So we've got to get out of this space and get into the online space where Expedia and hotel bookers and Hostel World, all these things. So we thought we're going to be a bit more of that. And so that started the conversation, and then he went home and we kept talking about it, and Tripadeal sort of came out of that conversation.
And you started off like sort of just selling, like buying bulk amounts of like kayaks, like the kayak tours, and
prior to that we did just villa nights in Bali, because I was in Bali.
Yeah.
Right? And then Norm was back here though, because he was in Backpacker World in Byron Bay.
And Curtis, how does Curtis fit into it? Because I know he
came in later.
Right.
But so Norm's back here hustling for any local products, which are kayaks and mountain bike trips and nights in the hostels and skydiving. And I'm hustling for villa nights and surf lessons in Legiano. So it's a combination. It was just really us hunting around the areas that we're in for product and putting it on a website and trying to sell it. Pretty basic.
Yep.
Got to start somewhere though.
As you get going in these things, as any entrepreneur will tell you, you just keep trying to improve your idea, right? You keep making mistakes and trying to work out where you went wrong and make it a little bit better. And I think Tripadeal is just a classic example of just ideating one little okay idea and making it into a really good idea.
Yeah. What was the dream though? So when you're starting to bring on people, what did you want Tripadeal to be?
Again, in the entrepreneurial sort of headspace, you're basically hustling for money, really. You just want to find a way to maximise the idea that you've got, reach the fullest potential of it. So you don't really have an end goal in mind. You're just hustling and growing and just feeding off the energy and the momentum and the growth. And so we never really sat down and went, okay, we want to take it from A to B. We just wanted to keep raising the altitude.
What was it you could see though in like consumer habits that made you think that this is something that's going to become something that everybody's going to want to be a part of? Like what was it that, could you see it happening around you?
It's just test and measure, isn't it? So you have one product that does a certain thing and sort of resonates with a certain amount of people and you go, this one looks pretty good. Let's just invest a bit more. Let's see if we can do a bit more of that. And so you sort of test that a bit more and go, okay, that's sort of hit a dead end down here, so we could only maximise it to that sort of size. But then you say, let's try this product, and so you start to just get a sense for where the opportunities are just by testing. It's pretty basic shit.
Well, you're having to put so to say if you're buying like a whole bunch of cruise ship spots, is there a big outlay though before you actually sell those packages? Is there a fair bit of risk involved in this kind of business?
Yeah, there's heaps of risk, right? In any small business, there's risk, but when you're trying to take a small business, make it into a big business, you're taking lots of risk. And I think that the greatest sort of singular element of our partnership between myself and Norm is that we're both in for the risk, right? He was never trying to stop me and I'm never trying to stop him. So we were sort of encouraging each other to take more risk, and I think that was the superpower that we had that most people don't have. They usually have someone with the brakes going, no, don't do that, or being careful. There was no care at all. It was just go for it.
What gave you your risk appetite? If you think back, so obviously you've had surf shops, you've had surfing coach lessons, you've had magazines,
surf schools, those sorts of things.
Obviously, an entrepreneur through and through. But is there any defining moment, even as a child, like that you remember that gave you your appetite for risk, or formed you into someone that's willing to just?
I think that sort of being a surfer, I think there's a little bit of risk involved. Not like you like a bit of risk, like you sort of get excited by risk, don't you?
It's the adventure and the unknown,
all that.
not
so
knowing what's...
that's in our DNA. So we've been almost designed or sort of brought up, growing up in Byron Bay in this area, and you're from Evans, to sort of take risk and seek adventure. So we're sort of that mindset anyway, right? So for me, I was just trying to hustle to go surfing, really, and down to travel. So, and that there's an element of risk just built into that. And you never knew where your next meal was coming from, right? So you're overseas and you're just trying to work out where the fuck am I going to feed myself or get from A to B, and like, a little hustle, let's do a little hustle here. So you're never really safe. So you don't sort of fear risk because it's every day. Man.
And it's a counterculture thing, isn't it? So, surfing magazines and all that, everything in part of the surf culture is counterculture. And that was what makes you believe that you can live outside of the matrix, not have a 9-to-5 job. Correct. Because if you have a 9-to-5 job, you can't take off for... it's too safe.
Who wants to be safe? And so, like, there's no safety. There's no safety on it. Like, with a gun with a safety, you don't have one. He's got live rounds the whole time. You're walking around ready to go. So I think that that's where the risk, that's where the capacity or the capacity to take risk came from. Mm-hmm. And then if you have never worked for anyone and you've got nothing to lose, you just keep taking risk, right? But if you've had a very sort of curated life, been in a very narrow path, and you sort of built up this asset base slowly but surely, you don't risk any of it, right? It's just been too much effort to get there. Just had nothing, so just keep rolling the dice for 666. Surely it's going to come up soon.
So how does it feel then when all the world stops spinning and you've got, this is a pretty big facility that you've got here now that you own, and you've got the responsibility of how many staff at that time?
110
something?
at that point, yeah.
Yep.
The writing was on the wall, basically. We thought the writing was on the wall. But then, so that was part of us. You're going to go, the writing's on the wall here, but it is what it is, If you win some, you lose some, and that's still that mindset you've carried through, even though you've built up a big business here. And there's a lot of value and wealth in this now, so, you don't want to lose it. But I think, and my wife said it to me too, I know Norm and his wife felt the same way. When you come from nothing, you're comfortable with nothing. So if it goes back to nothing, I'm just back to where I started. And I've lived in that space for most of my life, so if I just go back to renting a house in Suffolk, well, so be it.
Do you think that's what allowed you to keep your cool and your calm and not completely melt down?
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, not to... I know a number of entrepreneurs around here that turn to the bag.
Yeah, exactly.
And then just unraveled them completely.
Exactly, yeah. I know the same guys, probably.
I think you know what I want.
Yeah.
But I mean, as an entrepreneur, Tripadeal is like a success that's come from mixed results in other businesses. So I'm curious a little bit about Roam Free, because that was a business that was heading to where Tripadeal possibly is now. In the backpacker field, you had a magazine, you had a product that was designed like a frequent flyer, like a loyalty card. But it kind of came about at a bit of an awkward time when things were all going online and people were moving away from physical.
Exactly.
So it was...
it was a timing thing, Dan, but that was a great test run.
Yeah. So you didn't feel like that was a failure, that was just education?
Exactly. I mean, you cannot look at them as failures, like they're opportunities to learn. If you think them as failures, then just give up. Go get a job, 9 to 5, be safe, pay your mortgage, don't take any risk, because that's like you're wired that way. But if you say, geez, I learned so much through that, and I did, right? There was things I did in that business that I'd never done before. Like I've been owner-operator. Here I had like a board of directors, and there was compliance, and there was an accounting department, and there was all sorts of shit going on, right? We had tax advisors and legal advisors. Holy fuck, what is all this stuff, right? And so you learn on the fly, right? But so it sort of it adds in all that extra layer of stuff that you need to have if you're going to make a successful business. You just can't have good ideas and be good communicator. You've got to have a bit more than that.
But you did make the decision in that business to kind of cut your losses and bail out of it, whereas with Tripadeal and COVID, you've decided to hang in there. Yep. So what was it that made you make that decision in Roam Free that this doesn't have a future, that I just think
you could see the writing was on the wall, and like you say, it was a timing thing, Dan. I think you were right. I think we were in the wrong place at the wrong time. If we'd been a few years earlier, we probably would have got the traction, and it did get a bit of momentum, but I think we could see that we'd missed the mark slightly. We just like a sliding doors moment. We weren't far off it, but we just missed it. And so I think that the collective who were part of that project just knew it. You sort of sensed it, right? So it was like, okay, time to move on. And I think, again, it's those instincts when you work for yourself and you're an entrepreneur, which you build up over the years. You know when to hold them, you know when to fold them.
So Jade, you as a business coach, have you had to have that kind of conversation with some people about their businesses, about, the sliding doors moment,
I think I had to have the conversation with myself a few years ago. Running a recruitment firm with investors, wearing a pinstripe suit, 3-piece pinstripe suit every day in Sydney, and recruitment's pretty boom, but it was more of the moment for me. My sliding door was like, do I keep down this path and end up a burnt out mess that has millions of dollars, or do I flick the the three-piece and chain it in for a wetsuit and come back to my roots and follow what I was trying to squash a square peg in a round hole for me. I was trying to use the recruitment firm as a vehicle to drive change for people and culture and create happier workplaces and consult on that side of things, but only getting paid as a recruiter and kind of going, everything's a grind, like, why don't people fucking get it? And it was like, right, it's either burn the boats or...
Yeah. And I think that's their point. If you're trying to put a round peg in a square hole, you're just going about, like, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Move on.
I mean,
Find a round peg for a round.
Is there a bit of a catch-22 because we're talking about like creating these businesses as part of the hustle so that we can live that surf lifestyle and not be tied down to any things, but now you're a guy who was responsible for 110 employees and bricks and mortar and stuff. So is it in some ways a two-edged sword that you've achieved what you wanted, but your board shorts are a bit, a bit drier than they should be.
It's that old sort of story, isn't it, where they talk about the guy that was fishing.
The Mexican.
Yeah, exactly. And he ends up with the whole fishing fleet and he never goes fishing, and he ends up doing the whole thing so he can just go back, get his line, go down the beach and fish again, and it's a bit like that. But you sort of get excited or you sort of get committed just to realise the fullest potential of your idea, right? And if you feel like there's still more to go, you've got to, it just would feel wrong and incomplete if you didn't go all the way. So I'm just taking it all the way.
So, go.
Tell me what the biggest learning from Roam Free was. So from that process of going, do you know what? Just, we've got to kill this. What's the biggest lesson that you took out of that experience? And maybe how could you advise someone else that's maybe on that tipping point right now?
I think we overcomplicated things. Simplify stuff. If you can't really, and it was always hard to explain what Roam Free, even you then and me talking to you, it's hard to really encapsulate what the offering was.
It's a bit complicated, maybe.
It's a bit complicated, exactly. And I think I realised, and Norm has been really good for me during our partnership here, who's had a very simple approach to business, and I've sort of tried to learn from that. And the more you simplify your offering, you should be able to sit down with someone and in 10 seconds tell them exactly what the offer is and make a really compelling case why you've got a great service or product that people want. If you can't do that, you've got a business that's not going to work. It's just not going to go the distance because you just don't have the energy to keep. It's sort of like this, but it's a bit like that. Actually, can I rephrase it?
So you explain it to an 8-year-old. Was it like, you should be able to explain it as though you're talking to an 8-year-old. Isn't it? That's kind of how it works. And if you can, explain something as though you're talking to an 8-year-old child would understand it, then you've got a product.
Think about all the great products in the world, you could do that with all of them.
Yeah.
Literally all of them. So I think that's the thing I learned, to not overcomplicate things, simplify things. And there's real beauty and elegance and intelligence in things that are really simple. We often don't think that it's just too simple. We think, the complex things are really tricky and clever and they're just fucked up and no one understands them, and it takes you away from where you really, really want to be. So
I think I see a lot with people, if it's too simple, they think they're not trying hard enough.
Exactly.
Or they didn't earn it enough. If it's too easy or it's too simple, then they must be missing something.
Yeah, you can solve a complex problem with a simple solution. There's no problems about that. You can identify something complex and find a simple and elegant way to fix it or to make it better. That's genius, that is there. But if you try and take something simple and then complicate it, no one's going to buy it off you, are they?
Yeah.
Well,
it's making your life hard for no reason.
Exactly.
Also, it's such obviously the industry you've chosen is a real cutthroat one, and I kind of sort of noticed just reading newspapers, the copycats kind of coming out of the woodwork and it seemed like it was just like reading say the Sydney Morning Herald or whatever. It was like who could get that full page ad in.
Exactly.
And do you remember reading seeing all these full page ads for Tripadeal, and then there was everybody seemed to be sort of starting their own. Yeah. Did you? I guess they say it's the greatest form of flattery, but must be pretty annoying as well.
We pioneered that, right? Whereas again, we thought let's not go in half-assed here. We're going to put an ad in the paper. Let's put a big ad in the paper.
Yeah.
And grab a lot of attention and eyeballs.
Can you go back a step on that, because I did do my homework, but I just walk through for the listeners how you decided when everyone else was going online and everyone started advertising on Facebook. You made a very clear decision to throw your cash at print.
Exactly.
And that was kind of, back then it was kind of no, print's dying. Exactly. No one does print.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Can you just walk through why you made that choice, how you made that decision, and then when you went all in?
Again, I think it goes back to that idea of simplifying things, right? So we just looked at our market and thought, well, who's buying our products? And so we put ourselves in the shoes of our customers, and we feel like they were, as it turns out, and we didn't pitch it this way, it sort of evolved this way, but the baby boomers were the people most likely to want to buy a package holiday outbound to these bucket list destinations that we were sending them to. And they had the most amount of time on their hands. They could travel out of season. It just made sense, right? So there's no point trying to pitch a product like that to a market like a cohort like that in Facebook and other places, which are not going to get that reach and connection. So we thought, what do? They read the paper. And Norm just said, we should advertise in the paper because old people still go down to paper shop on Saturday morning and Sunday and buy the paper. And I was like, well, that's a pretty simple concept. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And so a guy rang us up from one of the papers and sort of, by coincidence, just pitched us on putting an ad in the paper. Said, right, we'll do it. It made sense to us. And having said that, the first 6 or 8 times we tried to do it, it failed. Mm-hmm. But there was something innate in us that thought, no, this is the right strategy. So we just kept chasing that. And by about the 8th, 9th ad, it finally took. And the rest is history.
But it's expensive. It takes a bit of capital to do that. So can we talk a little bit about how sort of Curtis came into the business and he helped?
Well, Curtis was a investor. He came into the business at a time when we were looking to grow the business. And, Kurt had been involved in some other things that I've been involved in over the years. And so I said to him, look, we're looking for some capital. Do you want to put some in? He said, yeah, sure. It wasn't very much at the time, but we were going to use it on some print advertising, right? Because we thought we've got to keep sort of chasing this concept.
Go hard or go home, really?
Exactly. But as it turned out, so we were really drawing down on our bank balance and getting really close to the edge. And then the ad took, right? So just as Kurt was getting involved, it started to work, right? So
it took a big gamble, though.
I think it was more the idea that we had the capital coming in gave us that courage to keep chasing that concept, right? Harder. And then it all landed, and Kurt landed as the business was growing. And
I just go back a step because I think the key lesson for a lot of the listeners is you really went through and went, who is our customer right now? Not who do we think our customer is. It's like, who's our customer?
Exactly.
The baby boomers, and that's who we should double down on because of these reasons.
Exactly.
And then really put yourself in their shoes in terms of knowing your avatar. What do they do? What's their behaviour? Where do they actually commit to time? I think it's like then they were starting to use Facebook, but it wasn't where they were choosing to make buying decisions, was it?
Correct. That's right.
Like you really did, from my understanding, get into the weeds of what do they do? What do they think when they're in those different things? When they're in Facebook, are they there to pay attention to
with friends
things?
and stuff like that, and scrolling photos of their mates' holidays or something, things like that, So
but when they're reading a paper, they're used to go there to get
decisions were coming out of that paper, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of speaks to that philosophy of keeping it simple, like really thinking through it. Like even I used to hear these terms like avatar and stuff, like who's their customer avatar, and people got like things of like one guy with a little goatee, and there's some old lady with blue hair, and there's some sort of hippie dude, and they're all our avatars.
You got 10,000 avatars.
We speculate about all their things all their attributions and shit like that.
Their behaviour.
They're really overcomplicated with it all.
Yeah.
Who are they? Yeah. Who are they exactly? And for us, they were like an everyday Aussie, 50 plus, liked his footy, people that we knew, that we'd seen.
And I guess the headspace when you're reading a newspaper is like,
grab one of those.
Yeah, because I'll just segue into it.
I think that was it. Yeah, just keeping it simple and just like anecdotally, just like testing your ideas, like going down the paper shop and watching the old people pick up the paper.
Yeah,
and having Tripadeal plastered on a number of sporting teams, was that another kind of double down sort of thing? Because I mean it's a huge outlay to sponsor a football team. Were you already when you started doing that? Was it St George or Manly or the Titans the first one?
The Titans.
The Titans.
And then we moved to St George and then Manly.
And that's because you and Norm's, they're yours and Norm's team.
Yeah. So what's your team?
I'm not saying that out loud. They're not my team anymore, but they are definitely the mortal enemy of Manly. But I used to play touch for Manly, so I used to crush my soul putting on that full CD.
Well, not east, south.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we don't like to admit that in public anymore.
No, okay.
Yeah, there was this one time they asked me to be on the board. My lawyer was like,
Parramatta.
Run. He's like, you are
it's
not.
A basket case down at Para. But so the footy was interesting. So they came to us to begin with.
Right.
The Titans came to us. And I don't know exactly how they must have just had a business.
I'll go grab a Titans jersey and bring it over, shall I?
Yeah. They had a business development guide. Grab not that one. No, not that one.
No, the next one over.
That one. Yeah,
no.
that one. Yeah, that'll do.
One of those.
Yep.
Got to get the big name across the back of it.
Exactly. Or this one here. That one's a good one.
I'll.
Anyway, no, that one's fine. Yeah.
There we go.
Tripadeal. So.
Which year was this?
Well, the first year was that one up there. See and dare I say it, the Jared Hayne,
Oh God.
number 6. That's where it all started. But just to go back from that a little bit, so they came to us. So they got some guy, business development guy, who's sort of trolling through businesses he can ring up to see if they want to, put a logo on the shorts or put a sign up at the footy. And they came down here to Byron Bay and pitched myself and Lauren. We're rugby league lovers, we're everyday Aussie blokes. And I think when they came to pitch us on it, they said, okay, back of the jersey. And because we'd grown up watching rugby league, we realised that was another perfect opportunity to speak to our customers because they're watching footy. We know that on a Friday. I'm watching footy, they're watching footy. And we know that is sort of part of the working class Australian culture. And so we thought, what better place to place our logo to sort of double down and sort of to reaffirm our print media spend on the back of a jersey. And as you know, growing up in Australia, we sort of almost remember our football teams by their sponsors. Oh, that was 100%. The Warmall team in 1987.
Oh, it's the Pertec Eels. Are you kidding me?
It's the Pertec Eels, And there's something about deep in your psyche that sort of stays with you. And so we knew that
originally we were the Hardies Parramatta.
Yeah,
I've still got
it. Great, the 80s.
Yeah,
80,
I've still got one of those
83.
jerseys.
Back to back.
It's like a trust, isn't it?
It was a three-peat, wasn't it? 81, 82, 83. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the brand rides the success of the football team in that way, doesn't it? And so you're kind of like not just barracking your football team, the brand is riding their success. So if they make it to the finals, then you've made the finals.
Well, that's a secondary thing, but you're right. But what you do is you get there's some sort of trust that gets built around the brand that's on the back of a football jersey. Like you're not a fly-by-nighter.
Yeah,
if
you're a real
jersey,
deal.
You're a real Australian brand at that point, right? And so, bearing in mind, prior to us going on the football jerseys, Norm and I sponsored the 2016 Rio Olympics.
What?
We were one of the major sponsors of that. That's just fucking total madness. But they picked us. We went, yeah, right, they will do that. So it was McDonald's, Toyota.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember seeing you guys up on the...
Jesus.
And so, but these are sort of things where we went, okay, well, everyone watches that, don't they? And it's only once every 4 years, so we better have a swing at it now, or else we will miss it till 2020. And we just got pitched on. That was a thing which every Aussie's going to watch. We thought, fuck yeah, what a great way to get our brand out there. So we'd always put ourselves in the shoe of the consumer.
And again, though, that's again knowing your audience. So who watches the Olympics? Exactly. Who watches the football?
Everyday Aussies.
And it is trust by association.
Yeah.
So, like you said, your audience loves their football team and they love them to death. And so if you're on their jersey, you're my people.
You're part of the family at that point. Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's kind of funny, the coincidence, you loving Parramatta and Tripadeal being instrumental in bringing Jared Hayne from Parramatta to the Titans.
Oh, we brought him from San Francisco to the Titans.
Right.
From the 49ers.
And
my sprint coach is the one that got him into the NFL.
Roger.
Yeah.
Oh, well, he's famous.
That's a small world.
Yeah, well.
So you used to sprint, did you?
No, I used to play football.
Okay.
So I started a gridiron league once.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, because girls couldn't play gridiron in Australia. So we thought we'd start a league.
Wow. Not the lingerie one.
I'm not answering that.
Well, I'd like you to.
But Roger was not happy on a Saturday, and you weren't allowed to go home till someone spewed.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Great.
What about when the scandal? So, say obviously the Jared Hayne scandal.
Roger's in the middle of all the scandals.
Yeah.
He's had Kilcarney.
Yeah. Does there a bit of splatter land on Tripadeal in that situation?
No, look, we went through some ups and downs with some football players. Like we had that thing with the Dragons last year. Jack DeBellin. He had all those problems that he had. The Titans in that first year, there was a lot of controversy around Jared, had the problems with the coach. There was lots of things. There was that drug scandal. There's all sorts of shit that happens, right? It's funny how the public don't associate what the behaviour of the players to the brand. There's something sort of solid and good about sponsoring the football team, like you're doing something for the community. and really the players are the outliers. So there's no real
No risk in that way.
damage, really. No. Although everyone's contract says you can get out of the deal if they fuck with your brand too much.
Yeah.
But we were always of the opinion that we can't. We're not going to pin it on the club just because a player does something stupid. And so we always supported the clubs through all these things. And Norm's been very vocal in the paper in terms of some of the problems at the Titans and problems at St George. He gets out in the paper and says, no, we're going to back Jack de Belin, or we're going to back this or back that. And I think it's proved to be quite a good tactic for us.
I think what you said there about the general punter, though, looks at someone who sponsors a football team as sponsoring the community.
Exactly.
And I think that goes back to a lot, like one of my big clients at the moment, one of our core things is we sponsor different types of football teams, but it's to give back to the community.
Exactly.
And we're looking at the bigger players, but I think it is from grassroots level. You remember being a kid and you remember how much you appreciated the local business sponsoring your footy club.
It's true.
These big clubs have big grassroots investments in their like communities. So the Titans do some great stuff around this area with disabled footballers and all school communities and Indigenous communities. Manly do a lot of stuff with that, as do the Dragons. And during the fires down south, the Dragons were really active in the South Coast community, distributing groceries and money and all sorts of things to the community there. So you don't see lots of that stuff. All the good stuff that they do in the community, it really has traction, and the community understand it and recognise it. So you get the advantage of all that.
Just to get a little bit internal here, to be someone who's a CEO of a company that's sponsoring multiple football teams and the Olympics, there has to be a part of you. Is there a part of you that starts doubting whether you are someone who can be a CEO of a company that size doing that kind of thing? Or have you always felt that within you on a certain intrinsic level that's what you're meant to be doing?
That's a good question. I think you never prepared like it. We've had no training to do this, right? So we're just learning as we go. And there's no self-doubt, but there's certainly an awareness that you lack experience in certain areas, or you lack understanding of certain things. And so I think if you have that awareness, you can sort of mitigate that by hiring good people who can sort of fill in those gaps for you. So rather than think or pretend you can do it all, you admit completely you can't do it all, and you start getting the good people in and say, okay, you're the finance guy, you're the HR girl, can you help me do this? I know I've got to do it, I don't know what to do. Yeah. And so I think we've been very good at delegating that in terms of not having the ego to think we know everything. There's certain things we're good at, and we tend to lean into those areas, but a lot of it we sort of farm out to other people, more experienced people.
Talk to me about how you get that. You've got the awareness, great. What sort of books or mentors have you had to help you grow into the CEO that you are today?
That's a good question too. There's certain people that you sort of run into in your journey. We've been lucky to be exposed to a few very successful people just by our association, for example, with News Corp. So we get invited to events and stuff like that. I mean, Norm and I have found ourselves at the Murdoch's house at Christmas time, and talking, shaking hands with the PM and the treasurer, and Harvey, Jerry Harvey or whatever. Right?
Not bad from a surf coach bum from Byron.
Exactly. So, and I think in that you sort of glean sort of ideas and glean little hacks that they've come up with or whatever, just through conversation with those people.
I heard Norm on Mark Boris's.
Yeah, Norm knows on Mark Boris's thing. I think that so we have been exposed to a lot of interesting and successful people, and just through the process of symbiosis, you sort of start to understand how they do things and sort of learn from that. I think all the great teachers are just people in the community, people that you know. They're not necessarily successful people. They're just, they're old surf coaches, they're business coaches, they're the guy down the coffee shop. I try and learn from everyone.
Is there a common trait though in these people that you respect and that you look up to? Is there a common sort of trait that you look for in someone to work with in a business or as an employee?
The people that catch my attention and I sort of remember things that they say or just things that they do are people that sort of are a bit outside the box, a bit like running their own race a bit. I think I like people who are always challenging conventions and things like that. I sort of tend to gravitate towards those people, and I think that
risk takers.
They're risk takers, but a lot of the time they are sort of very unorthodox people, and they and all the great people, the successful people, tend to run their own race. They're not really trying to copy or follow trends.
Performing.
They're not at all. And if we think about the great entrepreneurs in the world or businessmen, they're all dropped out of college, don't they? And they've all got a story they told when they started in the garage, or they were at Stanford and they spun Stanford. I'm going to go start my own business. And the guys from Google or whatever.
Battlers, Aussie battlers.
Kind of, they're always a bit outside. They're a bit unorthodox. They're a bit outside the system, and they're a bit outside the common framework.
It goes back to that idea of the counterculture.
Exactly. And so we were perfectly sort of manufactured to be good in that space and to resonate with those sorts of people. I think that's why when we go to events like we do, those guys resonate with us too. They're like, oh, we like these guys. They're like these guys from Bali.
They're drawn to you.
They're different, and we're all different. I think
But the gift of the gab that you and Norm both have, is that a gift? Do you think it's something that's been there, or is that something that's also can be kind of learned and developed?
Well, you've got it, Dan.
In some ways, but I don't know.
You're a communicator.
I don't know how I'd feel about being
Dude,
at
you're a radio
Christmas with
presenter.
Rupert Murdoch and those kind of guys.
I
Though.
think so. What it comes down to,
Oh, thanks.
and like the hack, like the secret is just to be authentic. If you be yourself, people just go, "Fuck, that guy's really interesting." Just being himself. Like, so don't go in a situation and try and be something that you aren't, or try and pretend to be someone that you aren't.
Well, you don't be the gay Chinese man living in his house.
Only when you're on the phone and you're trying to start a business up. But exactly. So I think if you're authentic, everyone wants to listen. And if you're not authentic, no one wants to listen. So it's really simple. Be yourself.
And there's always going to be haters. Have you had, people that have sort of dropped away out of your life because they've seen you maybe? Some people think that you've sold out into the corporate world?
None that I really know of, but I bet you
None that he cares about.
Yeah. I don't care. Yeah. Because you can't care. You can only, you just put your best foot forward, be the best person you can be. If people hate you, they hate you. If they love you, they love you.
But you've got to think about the character of that person.
Exactly. Well, I know,
because it's all poppy syndrome, That's
Exactly.
a big part of business in Australia is dealing with that, I reckon.
Yeah.
And so the general public who don't know you might have a certain perception of you, and you can't change that. So there's no point worrying about it. If you came to me, Dan, and gave me some feedback, I'd probably take it on board, right? But if someone, like a stranger in the street, I just don't care. So I think
old mate giving me a spray for the sound quality. I'm not trying to do a workout at Lennox.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, thanks for the feedback. I think if you can sort of maintain that, then I'm sure there's haters out there. I'm sure, like in Australia, we don't celebrate success very well here.
No.
And you want to bring people back to the pack rather than sort of lift them up.
Yeah.
But
cut down that tall poppy.
And as a company, it sounds like the way you dealt with the pandemic when it struck was like you went all out for your customers, and that and do you sort of feel now that you've ridden through that and that the brand Tripadeal is still carrying,
we've done pretty well. Like all the travel brands inflicted some damage on the way through, right? Because people had some bad experiences that were out of our control. Yeah. Completely, right?
Yeah.
You wear the brunt, but it's like...
I've had a few letters from people and things like that, and, we've had to, respond to some people who aren't happy, right? And some people you won't make happy, right? Because they want to blame COVID on us. Dude, I just didn't.
They just want to blame someone.
I didn't eat the bat in Wuhan.
The Karens.
Or fuck the monkey in Africa. You can't blame me.
All the Karens of the world trying to
There
micromanage everything.
is a certain percentage of those people out there that we know right now, and this last couple of years has really brought that out in some people. So they're there, but by and large, we sailed through it on the back of being honest people, authentic people, having integrity, and really trying to put ourselves in their position, and where we can, giving them the best possible outcome. It's not always the optimum outcome, but the best one we can do. And I think by and large, the community, the Tripadeal community, feel that we've done that. So,
just on that, let's circle back. You had 60 people that you managed to keep on full salary during this time. Not a great deal of travel going on in the world.
Yep.
What the fuck were they doing?
Solving problems still. Well, we're in crisis. So the crisis starts at the start when Wuhan and all that stuff happens and they close the borders. And the crisis continues for us for 2 years because people were due to travel in March, April, May, June, July. Yeah. So I'm refunding credits, trying to unravel.
I don't think I even chased up my credits.
Right? Which is great, right? Because
I paid for I've got an amazing villa on the cliff at Bingin in Bali that I paid full.
It's probably still waiting for you, sister.
Yep, to run a workshop.
And there's a lot of trust in travel too. So we had credits sitting out of operating operators overseas who can't give us the money back because they've made commitments to other hotels. And so there's this sort of supply chain, daisy chain of trust, right, that goes back to 2 years now. We're trying to make good on all these promises. So managing all those relationships, which has been good for us because because of who we are, we've maintained great relationships. And now we're starting to resell. And we're selling them back to Turkey and back to Greece and back to Italy, where these credits are now. And so our customers can go right back where they were, pick up where we left off, and it's all good. So we've been in crisis management for 2 years.
Is it, does it take its, you know, not knowing of when it's going to end and all of that, and the crisis management, I mean, it must really kind of take its toll, like showing up for work every day, and rather than making money, you're cancelling trips. Yeah.
Money, yeah, exactly. And especially when you're put all the effort into selling that thing, then you've got to give it all back, right? But there's no accounting for all the cost and stuff that you incurred just to try and
just
make the money in the first place and then to give it back. Yeah. You're losing twice.
Were you angry? Were you angry at anything? Angry at God? Why have you done this to me?
Angry at the body.
The government? Have you been angry at the government over this?
I was angry at the government, definitely. I think the way the government's handled it has been... it's been such a mixed messaging. It's been really hard in the business to sort of plan anything, right? And in travel, we've really had it tough, right? Because I think when I say I'm angry with the government, I'm just angry with some of the policy changes that happened with the borders closing and opening and closing and opening and closing, and the data changing, and the narrative just all over the shop. So we'd be sort of encouraged to sell domestic holidays, but then they'd shut the Queensland border and they'd shut the WA border, and they'd reopen the border and they'd shut the border, and we're like, fuck, what is going on here? So there's been a lot of frustration there, and I think that could have been handled better. But it is what it is. I think we've learned a lot from this as far as our federation's concerned and all that sort of stuff. But as far as being angry at the world, I mean, Dan, I've got a beautiful wife, you know her, got 4 beautiful kids, got a house on the beach in Byron Bay. During lockdown, I was surfing the past, the bank was epic. It's hard to be angry. It's hard to just go, fuck my lot in life. You know what I mean? I've already done really well. And if I look back of the guy who's prepared to have nothing, was happy with nothing, I've got fucking everything. So I thought, okay, I can't be mad at God.
So you never had a sense of entitlement. It's not like it came with a silver spoon in your mouth. No. Came with a block of wax in your pocket.
It's easy come, easy
and that's
go.
it. Yeah.
It's not easy come, but it's easy go. You know what I mean? Yeah. So.
Can I circle us back to your team and the culture that you've built? You talked about I hire the people that are basically what it encapsulated for me was Branson's methodology of hire people smarter than me and let them do their job. Yep. Walk me through some of your hiring policies and procedures. How do you find those right people? How do you convince them to come on board? And you said, because just before this you said, we're starting to hire again. Yeah. How do you convince people to come into travel now?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's not easy. I think we built up a good reputation over the years, and Tripadeal's it's a household brand, pretty much. So we've got better at hiring people because there's more people interested in working in a business like ours. So as the company profile goes up, so does your capacity to hire. Pandemic has not been good. It's not been good. If you've got a job, if you're a business analyst and you're working for the bank right now, you're not probably thinking about switching up to travel, right? Because travel is very unpredictable, right?
It's a roller coaster ride waiting to happen.
But we have had success in 2 ways. We either hire people based on the type of people that they are.
Yeah.
So we hire on personality, personal attributes, characteristics, because you know that you represent all the good things that we know we can shape, and you're going to be really excellent in that sort of task that we need you to do. But there are sort of, as you grow bigger.
Do you want a beer, Richard?
Sure, I'll have one. I'll have a stone and wood.
Do you want a fizz, Jade?
No, I'm good. I'm just on the back of my 6 weeks solid.
I'll have
my
a stone
rules
and wood
in place.
Maybe I'll have a stone and wood. Maybe you could kill the AC on freezing over there. You cold?
I'm always cold.
Yeah.
I love this. It's usually on Fridays we do Barrels of Business and Beers.
Yep.
And so, it's actually a segment we do.
Okay. So getting back to that, but obviously as you get bigger and it gets more serious, you need some more serious people in your business. Yeah. So we've recently hired, these are people who have to come with qualification, have to come with a resume that tells you they can do the job you need them to do. So these are, key finance roles, key technical roles. You can't just make those people.
Yeah.
You got to buy those people. So
Yeah. Because you don't have the time to train for the skill.
no, exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past, we're back in the old office, we're hustling, we're making things up as we go along, we're making up personalities on the phone and things like that, right? At that point, you're hiring anyone.
Yeah.
And you're hiring them.
We just
because
need someone else with an accent that doesn't sound like me.
Exactly. I just need another body in that seat, and you've got to do these three things.
Yeah.
Did you actually hire a gay Chinese man in the end, just to?
Just
to keep the process going.
Norm is still dreaming of that day. He really wants to get a gay Asian gentleman to come and work for us. So fingers crossed, one day.
Actually, it's
Like
interesting.
you've got big shoes to fill,
Yeah,
buddy.
exactly.
I mean, China, like, it's interesting what you're saying. China is such a big part of your business. Sending, is it sending people to China or Chinese people here?
Sending people to China.
Yeah,
Outbound travel.
Yeah. So have you had to kind of learn a lot about the way that the Chinese kind of operates and their kind of government, and sort of have you had to kind of insert yourself into their?
In all the countries you do that. We have ground operations in several countries, and when I say we have ground operations, we are the ground operator in those countries.
Yeah.
We're not just outsourcing it. We've got
Your
people on the
ground.
ground.
Yeah.
And so you have to learn how these things operate in those places. And there are nuances for different jurisdictions, different countries, different cultures. But by and large, we sort of go through a process of, test and measure all the time and land on some good people in those places. And then we just really concentrate all our business into those singular operators and say, hey, instead of having a bunch of different businesses sending you business, we're your only guy.
So there's always cowboys in the tourism world, even like around here. You've got a whole bunch of different. Growing up, there was always, I'm not going to name names, but there was always the surf school that was like the cowboy surf school. The boards were always hanging off the back of the trailer and leg ropes dangling everywhere. And, they would cut price and
insurance or any shit like that. Who cares?
Yeah. So I mean, quality control of the product is obviously paramount in a business like Tripadeal.
Yep.
I mean, so how do you go about knowing for sure that you've picked a product that is
one
gonna?
One of the good parts of the job is you go there. You go to Greece and we go meet the guy and we go to the hotels and we actually do those things. So
because you're not just putting people in the like how there's those package deals where you think it looks great on the paper and then you get there and you're in some sort of X kind of dormitory or something on a bunk bed.
There has been things like that, but out of our control. But like that was in the early days. As we got better, we don't do that because I don't think you got to really nurture and preserve your brand. You got to really cherish it and keep it, in its optimum. Polish it all day long and make sure everyone loves your brand. And if you have experiences like that, it just tarnishes it. And over time, the air comes out of the tire and. I just can't sell ships to China now.
Talk about your branding. Like, if you were going to advise other business owners on how to build a brand, what things do they need to think about? And like, how do you decide? How do you protect it? How do you decide the tone? What sort of steps have you done to do that?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a fairly decent sized marketing team and had sort of various agencies over the years run their eye over things and things like that. But again, it's just work out who your customer is and just gear everything to sort of serve them, to speak to them and to resonate with them, And I think right from the aesthetic through to the sort of just your core principles, have to just always sort of come back to the customer. So, we settled, we actually went away as a management group after 3 or 4 years of being in business and thought, fuck, we've got to work out what we stand for. Like, what do we stand for? Like, we don't know. We're just like hustlers and we're from Byron and what else does this all mean? So we went away as a group and actually went through a process to try and identify what those things are.
Walk me through that, because that's something that I do with clients, specifically for building culture now, but breaking down what those core principles are. Walk us through what you did and how does that play out, and is it still the same now as then or has it evolved?
We sort of said, like, well, what we went to Queenstown, and we took a business coach with us or a facilitator and went through these exercises where, I don't know, their word association games or we go through our different personality traits and things like that and talk about our stories and talk about our personal stories and how we got there and what we believe makes our business great. And sort of after a while you sort of get that big mound of clay and you start to, whittle it down to some sort of shape, a manageable shape. And I think you land on those things that really just resonated with all of us, which we could say, hey, these are things that define who we are, and this is our sort of promise to our customer. And I think once you land on those things, it's sort of it's an organic process, but once you've landed on them, you know you're there, sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know?
How many were in the management team at that time?
About 10.
Yeah.
Yep.
Decent sized group to
Yeah.
collaborate
Exactly.
with.
And very different personalities.
Uh huh.
Yep.
Talk us through what are some of those core principles now, and how important is it to you in running the business, selecting your people, deciding who you're going to partner with?
Yep.
What level of integration is there?
Yeah. There's a fair bit of, I mean, like, first of all, our true north, our guiding principle is anything is possible. So you got to believe that. If you can't believe in that, then don't come in, because we're ambitious, and we came from a little office in Byron Bay, and we're trying to take on the world. So if you can't believe anything's possible, you don't belong here at Tripadeal. And I think that's the essence, that's the DNA of any entrepreneurial endeavour. So we invite people into the business who sort of encapsulate that, for starters.
Yeah.
So
So they need to have a real growth mindset. They need to be able to dream big.
Exactly.
And if they're one of those people that sit inside a box, or that's not my job, then they're
not
your
really.
people.
I mean, there's obviously people inside your box jobs here now, because you need people inside a box job. But there's still, we want them to think that anything's possible, and we want them to believe that's the truth, right? Or that's. We walk our own path, and shoes are optional. I think that's a good one.
I love that.
It's a really nice one.
I like how he's got no shoes on.
I'm in bare feet most of the time here.
Well, I have to wear shoes because otherwise I wouldn't be matchy with all the stuff. So
Exactly.
You know.
I'm sort of.
I didn't paint my toenails. So.
Known around here for not wearing shoes to work. And our sort of the ethos around that is walk your own path. Shoes are optional. And if you can get around without shoes, then you're really excellent at what you do. No one gives a fuck what's on your feet if you're really good at what you do, right?
Yeah,
And
my
to
business
celebrate,
coach doesn't wear shoes.
It's actually great. Good on you, because you're the best of the best.
Yep.
Wear whatever you want, And so if you encapsulate that, and also just speaks to that thing what I spoke about earlier when we talk about resonating with those outliers, those unorthodox people. Walk your own path. Don't let me tell you what to do. Wear what you want to wear. Bring your best self to work each day. Be authentic. And I think if you get those people together, that's where the magic happens.
I must say, just sort of sitting here after like 2 years of crisis management and putting out fires and all that, like you seem very like you haven't, it doesn't feel like
Not rattled at all.
not rattled. Like you should be at your wits' end after
We're not diminished,
doing
mate.
this.
No, we're empowered. We're good to go, mate. You know what I mean? Like if this can't fucking kill us, what can?
Nothing can.
If you can't have a global pandemic, my world down, right?
That's
In a
it.
travel business.
In a travel business where your product is contraband,
Yeah.
it would have been easier just to import cocaine and sell it
Yeah.
than to sell travel. It would be fucking easier. Like somehow.
Right.
Well, the
Yeah.
market
Yeah.
was still there.
The market was there, exactly. Demand was there.
I heard the market
Supply
was-
might have been a problem, but demand was there. But you know what I mean? So we're thinking, if this can't kill us, shit, we're fucking good, aren't we? We're really resilient.
It's like, what is it, job in the Bible or whatever, where it's just like, wasn't he the dude in the Bible where God just kept on testing him?
Yeah, the patience of Job, mate.
Yeah, and just everything went wrong, and his crops died and all this, and he was just like, well, there's a plan for me. There's got to be a plan. Is it? I mean, I don't really feel like there's much kind of religious element kind of to your story, but there must have been something that you drew strength from. Was it, like you said, your family and just being more grateful for everything you have, gratitude.
Being grateful, exactly. And I think if you've got gratitude, exactly, if you're grateful for the things you've got in life, then you're pretty bulletproof, aren't you?
I think that's one of the things that I've really seen in the business owners that haven't lost their shit during this process, because pretty much everyone's been affected.
Yep.
I've got a couple of clients that COVID's been the best thing ever for,
Yep.
and a couple that didn't think about it at the time. It was really tough, and because of the pivots we've been able to has made a difference. But if I look at the common thread through each of them and what kept them not going off the deep end or thrown in the towel, it's that they sat in that gratitude and went, even if everything goes tits up, I've still got this. Many of them are actually surfers. Many of them are like,
exactly.
if all goes to shit, I'll just go surfing more. Okay, the government's giving
That's the
cash.
fallback position for every surfer on the planet. My marriage goes to shit, my business goes to shit, if everything goes to shit, I'm just going to go surfing.
Well, that's how I end
It's
up
not going to be
surfing.
so bad.
I'm going to be okay.
Yeah,
I hadn't surfed.
that's true.
I stopped surfing for 17 years. Marriage went to shit, and I was straight back in my
Surfing,
wetsuit.
exactly. But it's true, isn't it? It's like the ultimate fallback position, the ultimate, like, you can't fuck with this because we're surfing.
It's not going to feed your
Try
kids,
fuck
though,
with
is it, though?
Well,
No, exactly. You're not going to feed your kids.
Things aren't quite the same as when we first met, you know.
I
You've
don't
got
have any mouths to feed.
any
so
mouths
much.
to feed.
I've got 4 kids to feed, yeah.
And a
How old
certain,
are they?
2 through 9.
Oh, Oh, okay, yeah, you can't really put them to work.
2,579.
Yeah, you probably still need to feed them ones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So can we just, before we sort of, I guess, wrap things up, so looking ahead into the future, like you said, it's an interesting kind of, we kind of caught you at an interesting time where you are really going from that sort of crisis management into like forward planning. Yeah. So, I mean, how much can you actually forward plan at the moment, and how big, how much of a resurgence is there going to be, do you think, over the next few years in travel?
It's like a tidal wave, right? When the tide goes out so far and go, what the fuck's happening on the beach here? The water's gone out that fucking far.
Tsunami.
Right? It's a tsunami coming back at us, mate, and we know that. The tide has turned. We can see the tsunami inching towards us, and it's just going to flood the whole country, sort of thing. So we know it's coming. How do you get yourself
ready for that?
Yeah.
We're just scrambling right now. It's all hands on deck. It's like that day in Thailand where the tide went out, everyone's just on the beach quietly playing and shit like that. It's weird. The tide's gone out a long way.
Oh, shit.
And no one, where the people scrambling in the background, knowing that it's a tsunami, we're yelling tsunami. No one's really...
Because there must be lots of holes in the market as well, because, I mean, obviously Byron has like been the backpacker town since day dot, and you look around, there's no backpacker travel places anymore. No. The hostels are all closed up. Yep. So, I mean, not just from a Tripadeal point of view, like, it's going to be interesting to see, like, how those holes are filled. Like, there's people like, Al Royale, who's, like, closed up all his travel bug shops, etc. And, I mean, are Tripadeal going to try and fill some of those gaps? Or, I mean, is it tempting to kind of, like, become more than just, the baby boomer travel people, but to be the backpacker travel?
Look, there's definitely some opportunities in terms of there's people out there brand swapping right now. So... it's a bit of a fresh start. A few of our competitors have been swept away in the tsunami.
That's right.
On the way out, when the tsunami was going the other way. And so they haven't survived. So there is opportunity for us, yeah, definitely. I think we expect to get a bigger market share coming forwards because we're one of the few brands that have come through this. It's only the majors are left now in the travel business. We're one of those. So we feel like there's good opportunity going forward, and we're very optimistic about that. I do feel sorry for those bricks and mortar travel businesses and those mums and dads who have businesses who've fallen by the wayside. It gives me no pleasure to think I'm going to take their business, but I will take their business.
How tempting is it, though, for what Danny was just saying then, to diversify your branding? Like, are you going to stay in the lane of the baby boomers and where you're known for and where you've built that brand, or are you going to pick up more, some of those other areas?
There's definitely more market
do you do it
share.
Under the same brand, or do you do a spin-off, or what's your thoughts around that?
We've had plenty of discussions about that.
Yeah.
During COVID, we were, during certain periods of time, able to pivot domestically. We built up quite a meaningful domestic business, and bearing in mind pre-COVID we were like 5% domestic. We built up a business that was nearly all domestic, and that attracted a new cohort of customers, a much younger customer. So our database has changed. It's sort of the profile, the demographics of our database has changed, and so we have an opportunity now to go after some other, like to lean in some different markets. And so baby boomers are our sort of bread and butter, but there's certainly a lot of room to go for like, luxury escapes style resort packages and things like that, which we have done in the past, but we're going to do more of going forward.
What about the surf trips?
Surf trips, surfers are shit customers. They're saving every penny they can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they would live out of a board bag.
To Bali, and he'll eat bunkus, and he hides his own motorbike, and he knows exactly where to go. And
you do have the luxury, you do have the high ends.
There's a secret market, like the podcast is called Barrels in Business.
Yeah.
And I had a dream of doing some travel goods designed for the travelling entrepreneurs, because for me, up until COVID, I was travelling all the time, living out of a board bag, trying to pack. Like, I've been presenting on a stage in Estonia, and I'd be dragging a surfboard bag with a skateboard taped to the outside of it, and trying to get my suit in there and everything. But I think there is that. Even your brother the other day when I was saying I'm going to organise a business trip that's on a boat and the Mentawis and like we can do
he's like that's the only chance that he's got of going on surf trips is if it is somehow connected to the business.
But and then there's so many people out there.
I'm in for that, right? Yeah. It's just not a very scalable big market. It's a niche product, and certainly you'd sell that. But we've got big dreams, big ambitions. We've got to grab as much market share as we can. So we've got to go after big tranches of customers.
Yeah.
And so things like that are a bit more niche and probably don't suit this business model. But they're certainly prolific and lucrative for other people.
Is there a chance of like pulling the trigger too soon in these kind of situations? And how do you make that call? as far as outlaying,
All the
big
data.
money
He's
on.
the risk man.
Yeah.
Like,
all
happy
the
to go.
data says, mate, like we've sort of put our finger to the wind, we've licked our finger, put it to the wind. It has changed direction right now, and we are going for it right now.
Yeah, well, Bali wants us back. Everybody wants,
I mean, who's not going to want a holiday? Who the fuck is not going to want a holiday?
Yeah.
Everyone's going to want to
Can
go on
anyone
holiday.
can everyone afford a holiday right now though?
They've been sitting on their
They've been
savings.
saving it. They can't go anywhere and spend their money.
Yeah,
The average
those
spend's
COVID
gone up.
disaster grants. You think so? In a way, the government's
They
basically
value it more. They're willing to spend
Yeah.
more because they don't. Because I think people's appetite is to spend more on an experience because they're like, oh, what if this happens again?
Yeah.
I'm happy to throw
realise-
some cash
exactly.
at it
We realise,
in case
man,
it's the only chance we
you
get.
can't take it for granted. I'm travelling next year if I can, and at every opportunity I can.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if they do this again, and some of these older people, they've only got limited travelling years left, mate. They want to make
Yeah.
every
Are you going to specifically market to that sort of narrative? Are you sort of going to actually say in big letters, COVID's over, get on a plane, or is that part of the marketing strategy?
Yeah, there's a whole FOMO thing going on out there. Don't miss out. You missed out for 2 years because we closed the borders. Now you might miss out because you can't get a ticket.
Because you can't get a ticket.
Right?
Yeah.
Literally, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
There's that many people trying to get on planes and go to these places. We're already selling out of stuff in the end of 22, 23. People want to travel.
Hopefully, yeah.
It's innate in the Australian culture. As
Well, most
Aussies,
people
it's our
haven't
birthright to
seen
travel.
half of anything in Australia. They haven't been to any of the major landmarks in
No,
Australia,
yeah.
but they've backpacked all over Europe
Exactly.
and they've been halfway through South America, but they've never been to Ayers Rock, they've never been to Kakadu.
Exactly. And we sold a bit of that.
Yeah.
But the tyranny of distance says we've got to get back out there. We've got to get back out there. So.
Yeah, let's just hope there's no more accidents in labs in China, or I mean,
exactly.
Is there any kind of sort of devil's advocate, playing the devil's advocate, something else that could really go wrong and really impact your business?
Anything's possible, man, now.
Yeah,
I take nothing for granted. But as
you still got to just plough ahead regardless.
You've got to enjoy these moments when they're here now, I think. We've got to live in the moment a little bit more. The knee's been on the throat for a couple of years, right? The knee's off the throat for a bit. Take a few.
So where are you?
Get on with it.
You're going to get yourself. You're one of the first people that are going to be getting on a plane.
No, I won't be the first people getting on.
I'm sure. What about getting back to the?
Yeah, exactly.
Charlie wants to get back to the UK.
Yeah. Hey?
Heading back to the UK.
If I was to go anywhere, and I'm in no huge rush, I'll wait for that first wave to get out there and see what happens and test all
So you happy to stand on the sidelines?
like that. Yeah, I've done a lot of travelling in my life.
But shouldn't
Where is the place you wanna go?
the CEO of Tripadeal be the first person to get out there and see that it's safe? Check that
me and
it's.
Alan Joyce and Norman Black and travel CEOs, Randall Deere and Graham Turner.
All on a plane?
together.
Yeah,
On a private plane.
just to
probably.
check that it's all good.
Yeah. No, look, I've got a great product partner, a partner of ours who handles all their European stuff, and he's Greek, and he's just been desperate for us to get over there. Like, dude, you've got to come to Greece, and that sounds pretty good to me.
I booked flights to Greece. I was ended up in Paris. Last minute trip to Paris. Jumped on a train and ended up in Paris after Tomorrowland, and thought, oh yeah, been dying to go to Greece.
Yeah.
Let's do it. So we get on and we book our flights, and then we open up Facebook and Athens is burning.
Yeah.
We're like,
Oh, yeah.
I don't think anyone's giving our money back now.
No,
Like-
Athens is burning. Yeah, Athens.
Yeah, Athens
last
was-
summer, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was literally. It was a couple of summers ago.
A couple of summers ago.
Well, the last summer before we couldn't
travel,
travel.
Yeah.
And literally, Crete was on fire. Athens was on fire. Everything was on fire. I was like, we literally just paid for our flights. We're like, no one is going to give us back our money on this because we're idiots.
So that's for me, Dan. I mean, obviously, we want to go surfing places. Indo. You want to get it.
Oh, speaking of FOMO, what about the people that ended up being stuck over in Indo during the pandemic? Oh, it's just killed me to see what was going on over there in the Mentawis.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
Yeah,
three people in the water.
I nearly got stuck in Bali. I had to make a call. I didn't have a home. Everything was starting to close. My sister's like, you can't get on that plane.
Where were you?
I was here in on the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
And I was booked to do a week in Kuala Lumpur to run a culture session for Mind Valley. Then I was going to Bali. I was running a business accelerator near Karamis.
Yep.
for 2 weeks, speaking at Bali Spirit Fest, and then running workshops for Freedom X Fest. So I was due to be in Bali till then, and then come back. I was home for 4 weeks, and then I was due to go in via Cuba for a quick 10 days, then run a business course in Costa Rica, and then off to Amsterdam. So I didn't have a home.
Fucking hell, off to Amsterdam.
I know.
All that,
I know.
Well,
Yeah, definitely.
To run a,
light one up.
Yeah.
to run to do seminars on personal growth.
Yeah.
And my sister's like, do you know they're talking about like you have to quarantine if you come back? You don't have a home. Where are you going to quarantine? I'm like, well, that's a good point. And she's like, and Bali's talking about shutting their borders. So if you get to KL and you can't get into Bali and you can't come home, I'm like, I'm not getting stuck in KL.
No,
that's going to suck. Yeah. And she's like, why don't you just go straight to Bali? And I was like, then I was like, oh, no, I don't want to be stuck in Bali if I can't get back.
Stuck in Bali, don't you?
All my friends.
Not maybe during the
are
pandemic.
like, we're stuck in Bali, and they live at Ulus, and they're like, swell of the centuries coming through.
You missed out.
Ages, hasn't it?
My friends are sending me pictures from commune because I always pretty much lived at commune when I was there, and they're like,
Karamas.
Yeah. And they're like, look where we are. I'm like,
it's about that time of year too, isn't it, Dan? What's it? October. It's late season. There'll be no one there. Well, literally no one there right now. But
well, yeah. I mean, prior to COVID,
time.
like surf trips had become such a nightmare because everybody's surfing now. You know, like Brazil, like this. You know, the Brazilian storm.
Russians.
You know, Russians just
everywhere.
taking over Canggu and that.
Russians, and you're fighting an Austrian for a wave.
Yeah.
You shouldn't even be able to surf.
Yeah.
Like I can't believe you can fucking swim.
Yeah.
And yet you're like, it's like 8 foot, and you're like hassling me.
And then, the pandemic was a rewind, like living in Byron too, just, getting the town back as well, just having, I mean,
everybody decided to go back to surfing during the pandemic. Like, what was the past like?
Just the most crowd I've ever seen.
I was living it. So when this happened, I managed to manifest an amazing place on the beach in Palmy, right in front of the reef.
Yeah, right.
But every day, like, it was just like ants.
Yeah.
Like, where it used to be, you go out and there'd be like 3 or 4 of your friends, and
it's definitely more crowded during lockdowns, and like lockdowns are when lockdowns are over, we're more spread out. It's less crowded. Like lockdowns create crowds. It's
I guess the ocean's just one of the only places where you just feel truly like you're completely excluded from government policy and everything. Exactly. It's like there are you can't really do much to restrict people's movements when they're in the surf, when they're in the ocean. That's where you can truly be free. It's pure freedom.
Exactly.
It's the dream.
You're right. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's been so good talking to you, Richard, and it's such a great.
Finally, we got here.
Yeah.
We kept getting locked out.
Yeah.
So it's inspiring to see how you have maintained such a high sort of staff number through the last couple of years, maintained positivity.
Character, I think that's the.
Yeah, and you deserve all the future successes that are going to come now from hanging in there and maintaining that belief in yourself.
Good karma coming your way.
Yeah, good karma.
Well, there's a big wave coming, so let's ride it back in.
You can hear the storm building outside as well. We're heading to a La Nina summer, so we're going to get cyclones.
Unreal.
And yeah.
Good times are coming, finally.
Yeah.
For sure, for all of us. So it's been awesome meeting you and seeing you, brother.
Absolutely. No, well, thanks for giving me that first job and pulling me into the van. And that was the door sliding open from the van was my sliding door moment, because speaking of culture, and just to wrap things up, there's the surf. Richard's influence, among others, in this surf school I was at, created this culture of being part of something that you felt like you were not just on a team, but you're in a family, and you had these elders to look up to, and they were bringing, Richard and Sheep and Mason were bringing in the younger crew, the younger surf coaches, and it was just like, it was a culture of development and sharing of wisdom and an excitement and planning surf trips together, and having backpackers being part of that in the barbecues on the weekends, and it was like...
And I think some of the energy still resonates here, mate. Like, that's kind of what drives this joint too, you know what I mean? Like, it's sort of, there's little residual elements of that just sort of resonate through here too. That vibration was created, and it's still going, Dan.
That's who you are at the core.
Still travelling.
Feeling of belonging. That's all you want. That's all you want out of life, is to feel like you belong somewhere. And if you can have that where you work, then that's something that is a part of you. You belong somewhere.
That's the number one thing that I talk to with company owners trying to build culture. Is the key thing is if you even spell the word culture right, the first of all 4 letters spell cult, and what is the main reason why people join cult is because they feel like they belong.
Yeah, sure.
And so if you can create a company where there is a sense of belonging, that you were talking about the stand fors and stand against, like where people have a common belief system, a common something that they're working for. They feel like they're knitted together, and they truly can be authentic, and they can be themselves and feel like they belong. Then
As long as they don't have to have sex with the guru.
look, they're the infamous cultures.
Well, Weinstein's ruined that for everyone.
It depends, right?
I just wanted to be a guru.
Thanks for tuning in to the Barrels and Business podcast. If you are ready to build your kick-ass team, you're looking to scale your business, or you just want ways that you can get wet more often, make sure you head on over and connect with us at barrelsandbusiness.com. Actually, while you're at it, why don't you just hit subscribe wherever you are watching and listening to the podcast right now. I'll see you guys on the next episode.